24 ways to answer a question without saying, I don't know. Actually, even worse, some of my clients are really afraid of having questions asked. They have the opportunity for promotion, and yet their biggest fear is not doing the presentation itself, but that somebody's going to ask them questions. And so I realize that this is quite a pain point for many people. So there are two ways of tackling this problem. And the one is practical, tactical kind of stuff. And the other is mindset. In this video, we're going to have a look at practical, tactical kinds of things. And there are many phrases, but I'm going to give you 24 phrases that you can use to buy yourself a bit of time to keep yourself from going into that crazy panic mindset, so that you can actually start answering your question with a bit more confidence. Okay, so first of all, nobody is perfect. And if you didn't understand the question, don't beat yourself up about that. Even native English speakers might not understand a question the first time somebody asks it, or not understand or not hear it properly. So number one, please dispel that craziness that I have to know everything. No, you don't. You have to do your best and you have to answer a question. So here are the 24 phrases. When you want to start answering, but you just need a moment, and to stop the panic, you can say, that's a good question. Thanks for asking. Now, notice I use inflection. It sounds a lot more friendly if I say, that's a good question. Thanks for asking. Thanks for asking. That's a good question. Thanks for asking. Use your upward inflections to sound friendly, engaging, energetic. Use your body language, right? Keep yourself looking friendly, approachable, and use eye contact. As soon as you start looking fearful and withdrawing, people will be like, what's going on? Curious, questioning, and not trusting you very much. So that's a good question. Thanks for asking. Okay, let me think about that for a moment. Okay, let me think about it for a moment. Okay, let me think about it for a moment. Right? Think. That emphasis word in a slightly higher inflection highlights to my ears. Let me think about it for a moment. And it actually makes me feel good if I'm asking a question and someone says, I'm going to think about it, right? I know they're thinking, yay, right? That's a great question. Let me gather my thoughts. That's a great question. Let me gather my thoughts. That's a great question. Let me gather my thoughts. My point on inflection, I cannot overdo it. Sometimes if you drop your inflection down, it has the opposite effect than what you want. That's a great question. Let me gather my thoughts. Boo. You're not feeling good about this. That's a great question. Let me gather my thoughts. That's a great question. Let me gather my thoughts. You can hear the difference now. So please use the upward inflections. Okay. When you need to make sure you understand the question, you could use, let me clarify what you're asking. Let me clarify what you're asking. Highlighting, clarify, and asking. Let me clarify what you're asking. Upward inflections, positive, friendly. Could you please repeat the question? Could you please repeat the question using please? Yeah. If you get the wrong word stressed, could you please repeat the question? Could you, it's too direct, too pointy finger. Could you please repeat the question? Question? Let me rephrase your question to make sure I understand what you're asking me. Let me rephrase your question to make sure I understand what you're asking me. there's quite a long sentence, using your emphasis and inflection on important words. Let me rephrase your question to make sure I understand what you're asking me. Okay, don't again use, let me rephrase your question. Let me rephrase your question to make sure I understand what you're asking. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. Could you rephrase the question? So that could you, I think my voice sounds a bit squeaky, but I'm trying to show you. There we go. Could you rephrase the question? I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. Could you rephrase the question? Ask it in a friendly, approachable way. If you're going to like, I'm sorry, I don't quite understand. It's too serious. I'm sorry. Still energetic and friendly. I don't quite understand. Quite. Not I don't understand. I don't quite understand. Could you rephrase the question? When you're not sure you have the answer. Oh, don't we hate these? But it's best to be honest, right? So, to the best of my knowledge, and then you give the answer. Okay, so to the best of my knowledge, highlighting best, to the best of my knowledge, to the best of my knowledge, and then you give your answer. I'm not entirely certain, but I believe. And now this time my voice drops down on the I believe because I'm trying to be more credible and authoritative. I believe, blah, blah, blah. I believe this is the answer. I'm not entirely certain, highlighting entirely because you have some certainty, but not all of it. I'm not entirely certain, but I believe. But I believe. I'm not familiar with that topic, but I can try to provide a general response. Okay, so I'm not familiar with that topic, but I can try to provide a general response. General response. And you're highlighting, not, I'm not, is like, you're not familiar with that topic is the important emphasis word. I'm not familiar with that topic. You're familiar with plenty others, but I can try, energetic, yes, positive. I can try to provide a general response, dropping down because here's your authority again. I'll need to look into that further and get back to you. I'll need to look into that further and get back to you. Now, I am using a slightly deeper voice because I want to be taking the lead here in saying, I'm not going to answer your question, but instead of going like, I don't know, I'm going to say, I need to look into that further and get back to you. But it's a bit more like credibility, right? So I need to look into that further and get back to you. I need to look into that further and get back to you. I'm afraid I don't have enough information to answer that accurately. I'm afraid, right? Not afraid. I'm afraid is just polite language. I'm afraid I don't have enough information to answer that accurately. I'm afraid I don't have enough information to answer that accurately. I'm highlighting the important words, enough information to answer that accurately. I'm using my deeper tones. Again, I'm asserting my authority and my intention to give good information and not just be like, I don't know, or answer with made up stuff. Okay. When you do know the answer, you can say, certainly, let me provide you with the information you need. Certainly, certainly. Higher tone, certainly. Friendly, energetic. Let me provide you with the information you need. Let me provide you with the information you need. Of course, here's what I know about that. Of course, here's what I know about that. quite nice and rhythmical when you are giving positive news. You can get a little bit like, get to say this nice and fluently. Of course, here's what I know about that. Absolutely. I'd be happy to answer your question. Nice and flowy. Absolutely. I'd be happy to answer your question. Sure. Let me explain. Sure. Let me explain. I'm glad you asked. Here's my response. Now, asked, skitt, 3A sounds, hard to say. I'm glad you asked. Here's my response. And don't worry if you can't go the skitt, all right? In joined up speech, we often drop off some sounds, and truthfully, we can make it, we have a like leap of logic, right? That's what you're saying. I'm glad you asked. Asked. Forget asked is okay. Asked, right? That's hard. So I'm glad you asked. Here's my response. Here's my response. Indeed. Let me clarify that for you. Indeed. Indeed. Let me clarify that for you. Definitely. Here's what you're looking for. Definitely. Here's what you're looking for. Yes. Let me address your query. Yes. Let me address your query. All of these positive ones have that very nice, flowy, rhythmic sound to them. All right. So you've given your answer, and you want to make sure that your recipient, the person listening to you, has understood you. So you can check for understanding. Does that make sense to you? 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 Now I've got you. I'm using the questioning. If I don't use questioning, does that make sense to you? Can sound like you're a little bit irritated that you have to check. So don't forget to go, okay, does that make sense to you? Did I explain that clearly? Clearly? Did I explain that clearly? Did that answer your question? Question? Did that answer your question? Am I being clear? Or would you like me to elaborate? Am I being clear? Or would you like me to elaborate? Am I being clear? Or would you like me to elaborate? There you go, guys. That is 24 phrases that will hopefully stop you from panicking, give you a point to start at, and to talk through, okay, to move through your conversation. There are endless phrases that you can use, but you do not need to know endless amount of phrases. You need to know ones that work for you. You need a starting point, and you need to be able to stop yourself from having anxiety. Use these to prepare yourself in that moment and to move forwards. Okay. I also have a free training download that is on a warm-up. And why do a warm-up? Because it prepares you to perform. And maybe your performance is answering questions from your clients, your boss, your work colleagues. And you just need to swap your mind into English, build your confidence, wake up your mouth, breathe, and do mind control, right? So please go ahead. I'll pop that link in the description area. You can grab it for free. Good job. Don't forget, practice makes perfect. Don't practice listening and thinking about this, because you need to improve the connection between the ideas, the phrases, and your mouth, making the shapes. Go out there, do a great job, and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon. Bye.